Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you're joining us from. Thanks very much for taking your time to come and join our webinar today between Sabio and Twilio to look at how do we successfully adopt AI into the airline industry specifically. Just a brief overview as to who Sabio are as an organisation. So my name's Kevin. I lead our AI practice here at Sabio, ultimately helping organisations to adopt the technology and try and build out what are those successes and use cases. From Sabio's perspective, we're a multi-vendor organisation with a traditional focus on the contact centre market. We then consumed into the world of AI, and more recently we've adopted into CRM and have a reasonably sized data practice. Our goal ultimately is to achieve brilliant customer experiences, regardless of technology. It's all about how do we help you to enable your customers to have a great experience interacting with you. Now, today I'm joined by Lois from Twilio. Lois, I don't know if you want to do an introduction and talk through.
Hey everyone, I'm Lois. I'm a Senior Strategic Account Executive at Twilio and I've been here for over 4 years. And what keeps me here is really being passionate about helping my customers deliver exceptional customer experiences. So for those that don't know who Twilio are, Twilio is the leading customer engagement platform. We provide API-first, cloud-based communications and data solutions to over 300,000 global customers in over 180 countries. So we help our customers better understand who their customers are, anticipate what they want or need, and then engage and serve them across any number of channels and use cases all over the world.
Perfect, thanks Lois. So I thought what we would do is talk through a little bit around what is the landscape within the airline industry and what are some of the challenges or customer experience touch points and where and how you can utilize the likes of Twilio's technology along with others and AI platforms to enable you to deliver the best experience possible. Now, if we take, for example, the ability to book and pre-flight part of the customer's journey, whether that's looking at how do you communicate to them, what information do you provide and what channels, etc., do you make that information surfaceable or in a digestible way. There's lots of different functionality there. Now that might be when someone is online and looking to purchase, how do you present to them the best possible holiday or the best flight options based upon the search history that they're currently doing, or based upon their previous interactions with you, how do you best understand what baggage requirements they may have, what other ancillary services might you be able to make available to them. And then certainly on journey, I think as Lois talked about, Twilio's expanse across the globe. When we think about customers who are on their journey, we're trying to interact with our customers or passengers in different countries. So how do we ensure that actually we can engage with them in the destination that they're currently at? If something goes wrong, if we've encountered disruption, how do we communicate that and ensure that the passengers feel supported by us as the airline to make sure that they can know what next steps or what remedies need to take place? It's also a great place to try and interact on providing updates around what the flight schedule is, if there's any adaptations, so not just major disruption, but generally just keeping them informed. You know, that kind of last few days of anybody's holiday or just pre-flight is actually starts to become a little bit of a reality. I'm heading home vibe. It's actually how do you make sure that you provide them with that support? And then there's lots of other elements to it. So if we think to the far right-hand side of this, how do we utilize AI internally? You know, a lot of the adoption of where AI is being utilized today is surfaced for our end customers or for the passenger, but actually its application applies internally just as much as it does externally. So how do we ensure that you are using it to support the onboarding of new crew members or new agents within the contact center? And that might be through providing them personalized learning. You know, something that's really come around with the adoption of generative AI is the understanding that as individuals, as humans, we all learn in different ways. And actually you can start to build up a great personalized learning path per individual based upon what it is they need. So again, these are all around ways in which you can drive efficiency across the organization. Actually, there's lots of small and bespoke use cases that exist across this overview or this landscape that you could start to adopt. And each one of them comes with its own value, its own ROI, its own little bit of efficiency that you can gain. And it's all about how you start that process and then start to expand or layer the functionality. When we look at where some of the focuses have been within the airline industry, so within Sabio, we work with a couple of different airline organisations, and these are some of the key areas that we're trying to look at building out that support for them. And we'll go through a little bit about what those challenges have been. So, if we take providing support for customers on channel of choice, channel of choice has been a kind of statement or an item that's existed for some time now. But interestingly, the more channels you make available, typically the more inefficient the organization becomes, because actually that, you're building in inefficiencies as you do so. But what we find is that by deploying AI effectively in one channel, so let's just target voice, if we deploy an AI solution within the voice channel to try and answer those simple FAQs, let's say, when you then make web chat available, or you decide that WhatsApp or RCS messaging is now a channel that you want to adopt, what you find is that those FAQs that you're currently automating within your IVR actually become questions that require the human agent again. And so you're having to replicate or duplicate that effort across those channels. So where we're looking at this is how we go about approaching deploying AI is ensuring that it works on all of those channels from the beginning. And we're doing this from AI's perspective. It's not all around, how do we prevent customers getting access to agents, or how do you, deflect contact demand? Yes, there's absolutely a use case for that, but what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of effort that the customer has to invest. So the Harvard Business Review has some good papers on this around the more customer effort or friction that's in place, the less likely they are to maintain a relationship with that brand. So they're more likely to move off. So what we're trying to do with this technology is make it as easy as possible for our passengers or our customers to be able to interact to get the answer they want. It's not necessarily that they want the human response, but it's they want the easiest or the path of least resistance. The conversational AI and automation obviously helps us to achieve that. So that may be deploying within the IVR for FAQs, but it also comes down to booking. When I have your booking reference number and you want to add some more baggage, I can process that transaction with you over the phone, whether that includes taking a payment or billing it to the previous card. These are absolutely steps that can be performed. Even flight changes nowadays, so journeys that we would have perceived previously to have been too difficult to achieve because, we're having to pick out countries or airport names as well as dates and times of flights, things that previously seemed like they were too difficult to achieve with an AI. The technology has now caught up, which means it is absolutely possible to achieve. And maybe just touching on one more, so the proactive outreach and demand prevention. A lot of what we do with AI within the contact center industry is to try and manage incoming demand. So, it's to be reactive to what customers or passengers require from us. What we can start to use AI for, though, is to be far more proactive. So when we do have disruption, how do we proactively communicate with you, whether that's through SMS or, again, a great use case of when your passengers are out of the country, communicating through RCS messaging, which is far more cost effective, or WhatsApp, other means which don't bear cost or so much cost for the end customer. We can proactively communicate to them those updates, and actually they can interact back and forth with a chatbot or with an AI solution that's there to facilitate that journey. So if that's about we have to reschedule, or there's been an amendment to your flight, we have to change your pickup time, you can start to plan all of those journeys to be two-way, but to be wholly interactive with an AI solution. And when we think about what's the key challenges that exist when deploying AI, now we see this across not just the airline industry, this is absolutely across all of our customers as they go to adopt AI technology, is that there's three common obstacles that stand out. One is the specialist skills. So yes, we can all get started with AI solutions, and it is becoming ever more easy to do so. And what we find is that once an organization has begun the journey, they can pick up some of the low-hanging fruit, or those easier tasks fairly simply. But when you get into the likes of, well, how do we replan that flight? How do we change your booking from one destination to another? Trying to construct the conversation that makes that happen is really difficult to do. And that's where the likes of the specialist skills from our AI practice have been helping businesses overcome that. The second thing is, it is hard. Like, honestly, deploying AI solutions that are really effective and achieve the success that you want is difficult to do. And I think that often the immediate success or perceived success that happens when you first deploy AI kind of sets a precedence within the business that we should expect to see massive waves of automation take place. But again, coming back to your use cases, that's where it gets challenging when you have to go above and beyond the very simplistic FAQs or that type of step. It does become much harder, and so it's important to set the expectations of the business. And then the third one is in finding the ROI. I mean, from my perspective, AI is one of the good areas to work, not only because it's the newer and more leading edge as to what we all want to work on, but you're investing in the technology in order to deliver a result. This isn't a platform switchover or a migration due to age or anything. This is all about investing in a technology in order to see a return on it. And so the way in which we adopt our AI solutions comes with our methodology. And within that, ultimately from day one of engagements within AI, we work on an ROI-based model. So all of the initiatives, etc., that we create are all based around how do you use ROI to back it. So all of those other individual use cases that we talked about in the kind of last couple of slides, each of them should have their own justification as to why you as a business want to take them forward. And that's the process and methodology that we help to take you through. And that's because Sabio's way of working is through what we call inform, transform, perform. And what that means, inform is the upfront stage of investigation that we have together. That's all around how do you take the data to understand what is it that your business can achieve by implementing these technologies. It's all about data-led decision making, which ensures that not only you, but with our help, we also take you on that right journey. The transformation is when we then go through that implementation. So that is turning your IVR today from being DTMF or a few options into being something that has masses of insight, loads of different contact reasons, that starts to give your business insight you just didn't have previously. And then lastly is in perform. I think an important thing to consider with AI deployments is that the technology is like an agent. We should perceive this as a virtual agent. You have to onboard it and train it. You have to deploy it, so you have to get it live, but then you have to provide it ongoing coaching and training. And that's what the perform part does. It allows you to really maximize the value out of the thing that you've created, whether that's tuning it slightly or adapting the journey a little bit. That's where the expertise from the analysts come in to really help you hone how do you maximize and gain that extra 1 or 2% success rates, because that's really what's going to help drive up your ROI. And when we talk about where we're deploying AI today, this recent Contact Babel report showcases across all industries what's the current contact trend across channels. And so telephony makes up the largest part. And I think we as an industry have spent a long time trying to enhance our digital journeys. All of the airlines and holiday companies have went through the same thing about how do we polish the digital journey? How do we make automations available, self-service? How do we try and allow the customer to stay in that channel? And what we're finding is that, yes, we have managed to move some demand to self-serve, but I think it's not the same big shift that we had all aspired to try and achieve through digital transformation. And what we see is that actually the voice and the telephony channel still makes up the vast majority. And so this is where we have to now go and start targeting our focus. So doing things on web chat and asynchronous messaging is far easier than in voice, because text is just a much easier channel to manage, whether that's as a result of the type of interactions or the languages that are being used. It is just far simpler telephony is difficult, but we are being successful at achieving the telephony channel. And that's where I think we all need to realise, as I said earlier, about building functionality for one channel. So perhaps you've built it for the digital channel. Now we have to look at how do we digitize the voice channel for you as well? How do you take that journey and rebuild it and make it work for voice? And so the journey and path, I kind of said we've got a bit of a methodology as to how we go around developing and building out the use cases for conversational AI. So if we start from the far left of this slide and we'll work to the right. So the first thing we do around is data-led decisions. Now, there's a couple of different ways in which you can do this, but the Sabio's methodology is through deploying a small voice bot at the start of your IVR to ask the reason as to why customers are calling, building up that intent and understanding, and then basically creating you a bit of a AI strategy and business case that allows you to work out where and how you should invest in the future phases going forward. Now, with phase one is a solution that we do alongside Twilio, and what it allows us is the ability to deploy it in a technology agnostic way. So by that, I mean, it doesn't matter how your telephony is managed today, you're able to build this solution or deploy this solution on your current estate. So that this quite often appears when customers are ready to migrate platforms, or when they're ready to work out how do we go and tackle the voice demand. The solution is applicable in both scenarios just as much. The phase two part of this looks at what are the simple solutions for us to go and target. Now, simple solutions are ultimately how do you provide things like FAQ answers within the IVR? How do we, until we get to the point of building automation, how do we start directing your demand to the online digital journey that exists? And the way that we do this through Twilio is that we automatically send SMSs. Like your AI agent understands that the customer wants to change their seat reservation, and we ultimately just send them a text message with a link to the exact page that they require. And we provide a voice message within the IVR at the same time that says the easiest way to manage your seat booking is to visit the online site. I've sent you a message to the exact page you need, because this isn't about just providing a deflection message at the top of the IVR that just says, you know, we're really busy today, go online, which we all know is not a great experience and doesn't drive any real result. But when you say to someone that the easiest way to manage your seat booking is online, because actually you'll be able to see a map of the aircraft, you'll be able to pick what seat you specifically want, you'll see where the toilets are, like all the things that we make as part of our decision process when booking a seat. The customer is far better to service that themselves online. We talked about the least amount of friction, sitting on the phone, waiting to get through to someone, and then an agent trying to explain to you where that seat is on the plane, and is it a window seat, an aisle seat next to the toilets, at the front of the plane, the back of the plane. All these things are just a difficult thing to do in voice, whereas actually directing you to that digital journey is really easy. And it's dead simple to implement that solution, which is why it comes next, because again, it comes with a little ROI that justifies why you would invest in it. And then what we do is move on to phase three, which is around contextual automation. Now, contextual automation is how do we start to understand who the caller is and start providing answers that are relevant to them. So when your query is, I need to check my baggage allowance, or what's the baggage restrictions for my flight? Well, now that I know who you are as a caller, whether that's using your telephone number to look up who you are or capturing your booking reference number, we start to build up some contextual automation. So something that's fairly easy to implement, but provides the customer the answer they looked for. So that could be, like I said, you call up, what's my baggage allowance? We know who you are, and I can tell you that you're allowed 20 kilograms, for example, and we can provide the customer the resolution they're looking for. The next phase, as you'd imagine, is then to move to those slightly more complicated automations. So how do we start to capture the change of a flight? How do we start to work out that, you no longer want to fly from London Heathrow, you want to fly from Gatwick, and is that possible? You no longer want to fly to Paris, you now want to fly to Italy. Like, how do we understand those intents from our customer and then start to build up the automation for them within that journey? even the baggage inquiry might be, what's my baggage allowance? Well, it's 20 kilograms. Do you want to add some more? Because I can process that automation for you. Just tell me, do you want one more bag? Cool, I'll go and add it and we'll process a payment. So that's what you're really starting to look at. How do we replicate a lot of the digital functionality that we've invested in and make that work within the voice channel or the text-based channel, whether that's web chat, whether it's asynchronous messaging. And then lastly, as I've kind of talked about already, now that we have these automations working in one channel, the way in which we go about the build process means that it's really easy to transition that across other channels. So if you want to be an omni-channel business, you want to meet the customer in their channel of choice, you can do so, because when we built this for voice, we built it in a way that allowed you to easily consume it for text-based interactions. So web chat, asynchronous, etc. And I'm sure Lois will allude to this, but with Twilio, you have access to those platforms and those different contact channels to be able to do so. Now, one of the organisations we've been working with recently within the airline industry, we had a bit of a part of our initial engagement was that data-led decisions. And from that, one of the exercises we performed was to understand, why did they believe customers were contacting them? Why did they perceive that passengers felt the need to get in touch? And they did this based upon their own understanding of their business, as well as, wrap-up codes that come out of your contact center platform. People have, there is a number of different data sources already available to allow you to try and make some best assumptions as to why people contact. And what we did is, when we ran our intent capture process, so that little voice bot up front, which we call IC&A, when we ran that up front, we picked out what was the true top 10 reasons, and ultimately only 2, maybe 3, aligned with that top 10. So whilst they perceived that the number 1 reason was the fact that somebody hadn't received a booking confirmation, the number 1 reason is actually to go and change their flight. Now, why that's important is not just to better understand your business demand, but if you are working on a digital transformation journey and you are upgrading what your website or self-service or mobile app, this tells you the order that you should go and build your journeys. Like, this should help to prioritize what the digital team is focused on, or their back office functions who are creating APIs and making services available. This helps to inform you, actually, this is the priority order based upon the demand that actually lands with the contact center. And then lastly, another piece for you is the kind of what those metrics look like for this organization. So as I talked about through the phases that we have, so that phase 1 decision making has got us to this point. Now we're looking at phase 2 with kind of simple solutions and then beyond. So within their simple solutions, we've got from an IVR containment and kind of contact deflection. So this is providing an FAQ, sending the customer to the website, and making sure not only that you send them there, but you land them on the right page. When we first ran the exercise, we identified about 15% of the call demand that we could do this with, that we could direct to those other channels. And the effort to implement that is minimal. I mean, ultimately, in this instance, we turned it on almost the following day for this business during some of the disruption events that took place. So we immediately stood this platform up and was able to enable it for them almost overnight. And whilst this quotes that we found 15% of their demand fell into this pot, we're actually up nearer the 35% mark now. So because, as I said at the beginning, it's about an agent and it has to evolve and adapt and improve, the same thing's happening here. Like, the intent model, our understanding of demand is always evolving. So we've managed to increase the number of contacts that we're able to build into this process. If you think about redirecting calls, so that may be to third parties who handle different scenarios. It may be if you have a lost and found within a specific airport that you have to direct a call to, or a resort destination. That's the ability to remove demand, which today would land with your contact center agent, only for that agent to say, well, you have to call this other number or let me transfer you. So the double handling, Again, there's about 5% of that demand. That number is slightly higher now, but again, it just shows you that there is pots of calls which today you don't really have a great ability to remove. And that's because if we think about how we've traditionally deployed our voice services, we use DTMF IVRs, and we expect the customer to know the right terminology or the right button to select, the right option to select in order to get to the service that they're looking for. Whereas actually, when you go and deploy AI into your IVR, all of that effort is taken away from the customer, and it's all put on you or us as a business to understand what they asked for and what that means to our business so that we can then direct the call to the right place. And then ultimately, by directing the call to the right place, we're able to improve the first call resolution by reducing internal transfers and making sure we get it to the right team. And then lastly, this is the kind of phase 3, phase 4 is actually here's the opportunity to go and build out self-serve and automation. Now, as part of this understanding and this journey that you go on, all of the data, all of those call reasons, etc., all live behind these numbers. But this is just a kind of rolled up view to give you an idea of here's the kind of percentages of volume that we are talking about start to fall into those different buckets. And I think, Lois, Twilio is the platform that has really helped to enable some of this stuff globally.
Yeah, absolutely. So like as Kevin has said, we're the partner of Sabio for the communications platform. But I really want to reiterate that we're not like the typical legacy communication provider, nor are we the out-of-the-box solution. And I think this is particularly interesting when you use the data-led insights that ICNA provide to then actually build any experience that you want that's completely tailored to your business. So Kevin spoke a little bit about voice and telephony, and I want to kind of bring it to life with other use cases so that you can see like more of our platform come to life. So for example, if you're struggling with bots, account takeover or fraud, we have a solution called Twilio Verify, which helps companies protect signups, logins and transactions with a comprehensive and purpose-built user verification solution. But you can pick other use cases like, is your area of weakness in acquiring and retaining customers? And that's where we can help you create meaningful and personalized alerts like push notifications and promotions. Kevin, you gave a great example then about the flight notifications. So how can we supercharge proactive interactions with personalized context? And like even just as a consumer, I would love that when it comes to my flights and airlines. Another example is, are you failing to meet your customers on their preferred channel at their preferred time? And again, like Kevin said, by enabling AI across your channels, you can easily add additional channels without adding those inefficiencies that we were once worried about. And a great example of this is airlines that don't offer WhatsApp or RCS. I know you've mentioned that, but I've personally been on holiday recently and needed to get in contact with my airline and ended up with a hefty phone bill. And this is just like a quick win that we could easily take away by adding those channels that are actually relevant to that customer at that time, and then proactively communicating with them. It should be seen as a really quick win. So together, like Sabio and Twilio are really the strategic partners that enable you to build that trust, engage effectively and proactively, and then start to like reimagine what these experiences look like that airlines can create for their customers.
Right, thanks, Lois. Thank everybody very much for your time. There's lots more reference and information available about the work that we've been doing within the airline industry as well as other industries. So please feel free to follow through on the links and information that's available. Lois and I would love to have a follow-up conversation if you want to have a discussion on a little bit more of the detail behind the work that we've achieved or the success metrics that we are able to achieve within the businesses and use cases that exist. It'd be great to follow up and have that conversation with you and see where AI and Twilio could be effective within your business too. So thanks very much for your time and hopefully speak to you soon.
Thanks everyone, bye-bye.